Good afternoon. It's McCollum on Business. I'm Stephen McCollum. For the next 30 minutes or so, I'll get you updated on what's happening around the business world, stocks we're paying attention to, and of course, national and local stories that you need to know. And look, it's just a lot of tariff thoughts out there, job openings. Reporting is out today as well. And, well, what does that mean with the market? Well, let's tell you with the Market Watch. The market is just kind of there today, right? Alphabet is up because of an antitrust ruling. We will talk about that here in a minute. The S&P and 500, as you can see, well, kind of in between here is the Dow Jones is down 238 points right now to 45,013. The S&P 500 is down 16 points to 6420. They were up earlier today, just nominally. The S&P 500 was as well. NASDAQ, well, it's up 141 points here to 21,421. And like I said, that's all kind of on this Alphabet antitrust ruling that we'll have the story here in the first part of the show here for you, and the stock we're paying attention to. So a lot of favorable stocks for Apple and other companies in the same boat as Alphabet. Russell 2K down 4 points right now to 2342, and then Bitcoin, up today about 1,200 points, but it's in the 112,000 range, 112,447 for Bitcoin here today. Stocks that we are paying attention to right now. Well, first one we're going to look at is Macy's out there. Macy's, of course, being a retailer and had some troubling years lately. That they've been working around, kind of rebounding and getting out of things. Well, they did come out with their second quarter results, and as you could tell by the stock, 17.61% up right now. Well, Macy's had a good second quarter result. It did beat expectations on that level. Macy's earned an adjusted 41 cents per share on revenue, and their revenue was $4.81 billion. The expectation was only 18 cents per share. They blew that out of the water with the 41 cents per share. Now, the revenue expectation was only $4.76 billion. They, of course, came in at $4.81 billion for their, also, Macy's, which is always a good sign. They raised their earnings and revenue outlook for the rest of the year. Macy's is up 17.61% because of that. And then let's go from the high end of retailing right to the lower end. Dollar Tree out there, the opposite effect here, 8.09% down right now. They reported second quarter earnings and revenue that did exceed analysts' expectations. Well, here's the problem, right? They beat the numbers, but this stock, if you look at the macro level of things on the stock, because you're trying to figure out, they beat expectations. Why are they down today? Well, this stock is 62% up over the past 6 months. Up 49% year to date this year. People are just taking some money out of this stock, even though they had, second quarter earnings and revenue exceeding expectations. So I think we're just getting some people taking some profit here from Dollar Tree here today. And then finally, Alphabet. We talked about it earlier. We do have a story coming up here in just a little bit, but we'll talk some Alphabet. 8.90%. You know them, parent company of Waymo, parent company of Google, YouTube, all those companies, up 8.96%. Basically, a federal judge ruled Alphabet can keep its Chrome browser. When we talk about this story, I'll remind you, this is the battle where the judge came out and said Google needs to break up, and the Chrome browser was going to be the biggest, easiest way for it to happen. Well, Google's not going to have to sell their Chrome browser, and we'll have more details coming up. But Google won't be able to sign exclusive search deals, and they have to share their data with other search companies out there. So that's the synopsis of the ruling. We'll get into more details here in a minute. But not just Google, but Apple is up big today as well, all based off of this Alphabet ruling. All of these companies in these antitrust type lawsuits are up based off of this here. So good news and kind of a settlement. It's not over for Google. They still have a bunch of other lawsuits out there, but this is at least good news for them out there. And we'll get that story coming up for you here in just a few minutes. But first, I want to tell you about that job openings and labor turnover report that came out today. Well, it showed that 7.18 million listings in July for job openings. This is all according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. This report came out earlier today as well. So it's the second reading that's under the 7.2 million level since the end of 2020. Also, this report was the lowest in September of 2024. That was when just over 7.1 million openings were reported at that time. Outside of that, that 2024 lowering there last year, these job opening levels were last seen when the pandemic was causing, that huge issue around the U.S. economy and labor force, where nobody knew what was happening back in 2020. So it also comes in below expectations. The expectation was 7.4 million openings as well from the economists, of course, the general consensus. So 7.18 million, expectation was 7.4 million openings. So obviously this all kind of undermines and puts a exclamation point on those rising concerns of the weakening labor market. It's a trend that has shown up, several times in terms of evidence over several months now with this labor market. Weekly jobless claims data will come out tomorrow on Thursday. It'll offer the next round of insight into the health of the job market. Then on Friday, of course, everybody's going to be paying attention to the jobs report coming out on Friday. These reports are going to lead to the biggest thing, in my opinion, from what I read. Like I said, if you want specific investing advice, find somebody that knows what they're doing. But my opinion is these job reports are what are going to solidify the interest rate cuts here in September, and also a quarter or half a percentage point cut as well coming up, because we're going to see these bad numbers here, or disappointing numbers coming out over the next 3 days. So it has started. That's what we're looking at today. That's a big miss. 7.4 expectation, 7.18 job opening numbers is a big one there, folks. So then other news out there. Well, President Trump came out yesterday afternoon, and he said his administration would seek an immediate hearing from the Supreme Court. They're going to hope to overturn that appeals court ruling that said most of his tariffs are illegal. We've talked about this yesterday here on the show. And Trump said the administration is going to send the appeal to the high court. Today is when they're going to do it. So the federal appeals court, if you don't remember, on Friday ruled that most of Trump's global tariffs were illegal. That did reaffirm the earlier ruling by the Court of International Trade. And they also say that he exceeded his authority in using emergency powers to impose them. So it's not every tariff that's in danger here. We told you about that yesterday, right? The 50% tariff on aluminum and steel, that's not in jeopardy here, and a bunch of other. These are the ones that pretty much came from reciprocal tariffs and those types of tariffs that hit the countries specifically. The interesting thing is on Friday, as I told you yesterday, it's interesting that they still allow the tariffs to stay in effect and remain in place while the case moves through the appeals process, even though they say it's illegal. Trump has claimed that stocks fell broadly on Monday because of the uncertainty around the tariffs' legality. Absolutely, tariffs, uncertainty, the prospect of paying back money to tariffs that were deemed illegal weighed heavily on the market yesterday, and Treasury yields, as we talked about. Other members of the administration, well, they're not just assuming the Supreme Court's going to rule in favor of the president here, right? They're making backup plans. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, he said he is confident the Supreme Court will back Trump's use of that 1977 emergency law to impose broad tariffs. But he did say he's very confident the Supreme Court's going to rule in it, but he said they're also working on a plan B in case it does not rule in their favor. So still doing. How confident are you? Well, we're going to put contingency plans in place as well. So the reciprocal tariffs Trump unveiled to dozens of U.S. trade partners, complete legal limbo. This is going to weigh on the stock market as we go through this process as well. And it's just going to continue to be an issue until the Supreme Court finally rules. And we'll see what plan B is if they do lose that case. So in terms of those tariffs there. So we go from that and everything to, we have this big fight over the Fed chairman position with Lisa Cook. Can she be fired? Can she be not be fired? Well, maybe this is an insight because the Federal Appeals Court ruled that Rebecca Kelly Slaughter, she's that FTC, right, Federal Trade Commission commissioner, she was fired by President Trump, and the appeals court said she can temporarily be reinstated into her position, and they made this ruling yesterday. Trump fired Slaughter and another Democrat FTC commissioner, Alvaro Bedoya, back in March. So the lower district court ordered her reinstatement on July 21st. The Justice Department received an emergency stay from an appeals court that continued to temporarily block her from being reinstated. Well, yesterday, the appeals court did order that the stay be dissolved in a 2-1 decision. It also denied the Trump administration's request to speed up the appeals process because they wanted just to jump immediately up to the Supreme Court. If you don't know, the FTC was founded 111 years ago. Their job is to enforce consumer protections and antitrust laws, and it's an independent entity, kind of like the Fed, right, where you can only fire for cause, and that's where these lawsuits are going. So this might be some foreshadowing in terms of, going also with the federal chairmanship position there for Lisa Cook coming up, but that ruling out yesterday as well, and lots of judges' rulings out there around the government and now companies, because this is that story we're talking about. We looked at Alphabet stock earlier today. It's up that 8.19%. Apple's up today as well because it affects them as well. But the judge did come out and rule that Google can keep its, browsing, Chrome, underneath its wing, but Android must share data with their rivals. Yes, they have to share now. No more secrets. The decision is going to reshape competition and boost Apple, obviously, as well, because they do a lot of business together, Google and Apple, Chrome and Apple. The decision will allow Apple to continue collecting billions of dollars for Google for search defaults and strengthen Apple's bottom line. Obviously, you get billions of dollars. That's the one where Google pays Apple a lot of money to use their browser exclusively. So then Morgan Stanley analysts came out and they estimate that payment between Google to Apple in order to use the Google Chrome browser, it's worth about $20 billion a year, by the way. Yeah, Apple's up over 3%, obviously, based off of the news of that not being broken up. So then Google does get preserved its role as the default search engine on iPhones. So that means users will not notice any changes. Obviously, no other browsers are going to have to come in. But it does keep the rivals out there, right? Like DuckDuckGo, Bing. They continue to be at a disadvantage because they can't afford to pay those billions of dollars to get in with Apple, for instance, and be part of their system. Smaller search startups will obviously lose out on exposure, limiting choices for users seeking stronger privacy protections and fresh innovations. So like DuckDuckGo, for big rival, does all about privacy protections and everything, and they are privacy first is how they kind of market themselves there. They're going to be locked out of the system still if they don't pay, more money than what Google can pay to Apple, for instance, right? So that leaves us consumers at a loss for easy access to different privacy models with our ding. The interesting thing here, the judge, Emmett Mehta, he previously ruled, he's the one that ruled that Google holds an illegal monopoly on search and related advertising. Well, then he comes out with his ruling here and kind of says the opposite, right? He took a measured approach to his remedies. He ordered Google to share key search and advertising data with competitors that could fuel artificial intelligence startups and alternative search engines starting up. The biggest threat to Google right now, those AI search engines are a big deal here to Google because it will be eventually take Google down here. Google has stated its plans to appeal the decision, but the lengthy process obviously is going to take many years to go through. They won't have to basically act at all on this ruling until the process is done, and it's going to be a lengthy one. Google will see to it that it's a lengthy time frame for it to happen. So it's interesting, the remedies, when he says you're an illegal monopoly But you can keep doing what you're doing. You just have to share your data. Kind of a weird ruling here by the court, in my opinion. The case is the biggest U.S. tech antitrust fight since Microsoft back in the 1990s. It's probably going to end up at the Supreme Court level, like everything seems to these days. Google still faces all those other challenges and lawsuits about its App Store, its ad businesses. So does Apple, by the way. This doesn't solve that, but at least it's headed in that direction for Google moving forward now. And that's why Google's up 8% today. In terms of the stock, Apple was up over 3% earlier today as well. So speaking of AI, right, Salesforce has been a company that has been on the forefront here of AI and getting it used in its businesses and everything. Well, yeah, their CEO came out and announced 4,000 job cuts to its customer support roles are coming to Salesforce. So he announced this while discussing how artificial intelligence has actually helped reduce the company headcount. He did all this on a podcast out there. So these layoffs were announced. It was a interview that was published Friday. It was the Logan Bartlett show, is what the podcast was that he was on. So here's what he said, quote, "I've reduced it from 9,000 heads to about 5,000 because I need less heads when it comes to AIs taking over the Salesforce company and everything. They've been on the front lines with AI revolution. They've built what it calls an agent force of customer service bots. I had to interact with an AI bot the other day for a customer service thing, and it wasn't fun. I said my stuff. They said they'd get back to me. I didn't hear from them, and then they just did what I needed them to do without telling me. It was, I know, eventually I got the result, but it's like, couldn't I have just talked to somebody? It'd be easier, right? Well, these layoffs aren't the first ones, right? Well, they announced over the summer AI is doing up to 50% of the work at Salesforce, is what they said over the summer. So no shocker that layoffs are coming if the AI is doing 50%, probably a higher number now over that time frame. So we're starting to see large layoffs here with companies using AI, and maybe that'll lead more people to drink. Because another industry that is struggling, we talk about it a lot here at McCollum on Business. That's beer sales specifically, right? Constellation Brands, Modelo, Corona, for instance, they sell those beers. Well, they've lowered their outlook for its current fiscal year because customer demand for beer has weakened big numbers here for them. Especially high-end purchases as well are way down. It's people start drinking the cheaper stuff. The more expensive stuff, people are kind of weighing against here, right? So Corona, Modelo, they're the importer of both of those. They revised their net sales forecast for beer downward to a decline of 2% to 4% for the year. Its prior outlook actually showed growth being flat to positive in the 0 to 3% range. Obviously, it's blaming a lot of the incremental macroeconomic headwinds out there. Not just tariffs, not just imports on things, but also consumer sentiment, consumers spending their money, etc., is what they're blaming this on. We also know certain generations out there, we'll call out Generation Z right now, not drinking as much as previous generations were doing, and that is definitely cutting down, not just for beer, this space we're talking about beer, but wine, spirits, and those types of alcoholic beverages also. So it's a tough time for these companies out there, no doubt about it. The company's operating income for beer, well, they revised that down as well, declined 7 to 9%, when its prior outlook actually showed gains in the 0 to 2% range. The impact of lower volumes, those tariffs out there, and they use the term operating deleveraging is what they used, which basically means people aren't buying as much, right? And it's affecting their company. So Bump Williams, I found this kind of analysis of the industry. CEO of Bump Williams Consulting. Hey, there's an original name for your consulting group. He told Fox Business that the main reason behind the decline in beer consumption, well, it's been the increase in the health concerns about the impact of drinking. Fewer social gatherings in public venues where beer is sold, but even more so, consumers reaching the legal drinking age who are more interested in organic, natural products, things like cannabis, health drinks, those probiotic drinks, for instance, out there is what he's attributing it to. And we see these studies everywhere that people, especially the younger generation, is looking more towards healthy items for instead of these beers and spirits, etc., and wine, etc., out there. So Constellation Brands did their announcement the other day, a couple days ago, and they're not the only ones struggling in that field at all. Well, got some bad news for everybody out there, and you probably know about this because you might be feeling it yourself. Well, U.S. workers and us as a whole, we're becoming more stressed about the rising personal debts and our financial health around, our living situations. This is all from a Bank of America survey that came out. The respondents polled by B of A, 47% of employed people said they had a sense of financial well-being. Well, that's down from 52% at the start of this year. 85% of consumers, roughly, they carried some type of personal debt. 26% of the workforce was seeking help in areas such as emergency savings, paying down debt, overall financial wellness, compared with 13% doing that in 2023. So there's big number differences here, right? And what us as consumers are feeling out there. Well, almost 7 in 10 employees are more optimistic about their financial future over the next 3 years. Well, that optimism, it just kind of waned, right? Kind of suffered there over the next year specifically. So 3 years of positive outlook, specifically the next year, not as confident here, right? 77% roughly of the employees surveyed were worried about the economy. The U.S. labor market slowing. Consumers with the highest credit scores are starting to fall behind on debt repayments. Credit scoring companies like Vantage Score have come out in several reports now saying things like credit cards with those high interest rates, car loans, mortgages starting to go into default as well. So it's a big deal out here. And, this reporting here says 77% of people worried about the economy in terms of employees here coming up. So I don't think that's a surprise report by B of A. I think we know it's been teetering for a while. Consumers have been pulling back and spending money. No doubt about that side of it. We're just seeing more and more numbers and spiking numbers here as this time goes on. And these job report numbers this week, right? Job openings today, job numbers over the next couple of days, they're going to continue to hurt what we see out there in terms of consumer confidence levels coming up. And it's something, well, quite frankly, the Fed and the government needs to get their hands around quickly because this could fall off a cliff for us coming up if they don't get their hands around it. And then that's never too early, right? It's September 3rd right now. It's never too early to talk holidays. If you go into stores right now, you'll see Halloween stuff up, which, 2 months away. You'll see Christmas stuff starting to go up. Well, probably going to see them earlier this year because holiday shoppers are expected to trim the tree and they're spending this upcoming season. So not just in terms of gifts, but what they do to get ready for, right? Less trees, less expensive trees, etc. out there. Well, consulting firm PwC came out with a survey. And across generations, consumers say they plan to spend an average of $1,552 on holiday gifts. Specifically, not just gifts, but travel and entertainment are lumped into that number as well. That's a 5% drop from the planned holiday spending average just a year ago. So it includes travel and that with gifts. So there's not a lot of money left over overall with that spending. The sharpest decline? Well, let's just blame Gen Z again. Why don't we, right? They have the sharpest decline. Their members said they plan to spend 23% less on average than last year. That's the biggest drop of any generation. It's a significant swing from last year when they said they expected to spend 37% more for them. Their pullback is also contributing to an overall decline in that holiday spending. They're a big demographic to cut back in on that side. The other side, remember, Gen Z was the side that was doing all the buy now, pay laters for concerts, spending out there. We've seen those studies recently where they don't hang out with friends as much because they can't afford to. They want to pull back on their spending. And now we're seeing these surveys here as well. This is what the economy is doing and kind of the thoughts of the economy are doing to people thinking. In terms of retailers, Gen Z customers, if you don't know what a Gen Z customer is or what age frame a Gen Zer is, well, 13 to 29 years old. The average age for them is about 22 years old, just so you know. But retailers are targeting them because they're an opportunity, but they're also a huge challenge here as they enter adulthood. So as they are growing up here, right, they tend to have smaller salaries, new expenses, and debt actually to pay down. They're coming into adulthood with debt as well. Plus, they have the experience driven, often prioritizing, as I said, those concert tickets, hotel stays, plane trips, over buying new items out there. They want the moment now compared to buying something and having it for years, etc. But Gen Z is feeling the pinch as those experiences are costing more and more as time goes on. So it's also hard for retailers to keep up with those Gen Zers and young shoppers as a whole. If you don't know this, because of the TikTok trends and all the social media stuff, these younger generations are the fastest ones to adopt trends. But more importantly, they also abandon the trends quickly. A trend can start and boom, 3 weeks later be out. And you've stocked your store for all that trend that was just hitting, right? So that makes it difficult for the retailers out there. And also, this survey's findings highlight the uncertain backdrop for a holiday season that could be shaped, you know, at least a little bit here by price sensitivity, right? What are we going into here with the pricing here? Tariffs? How many companies are going to absorb a lot of tariffs? How many are going to pass higher tariff costs on to the consumers? That's not just going to affect Gen Z. That's going to affect everybody out there looking to buy this holiday season if we see large price increases and things to that effect. By the way, I know we're picking on Gen Z here a little bit today, but all the other generations' holiday spending expectations, according to this PwC survey, well, they were roughly flat compared with a year ago. The one exception, besides Gen Zers, would be baby boomers. They actually plan to spend 5% more on average, according to the survey. So maybe because they're getting older, right? You can't take it with you. Maybe they're more comfortable spending with their situation. They have more savings. They have more equity, I guess we could say, on things. But yeah, 5% more here for baby boomers. Everybody else, Gen X, etc., about flat to last year, and then Gen Z is way down, as we just talked about. This survey, by the way, if you want to know kind of what it was, a sample of 4,000 U.S. consumers. It was conducted in late June and early July. I wonder how much that survey has changed here over the last month or so as we're into June. I'm sorry, into September right now, because the economy's, like I said, teetering a little bit more than it was back then as well. And then another update for you with the big company, the Walt Disney Company. Yeah. $10 million fine they got to pay. This is from that FTC lawsuit where they were allowing personal data to be basically collected for kids under 13, which does violate a federal law if you do so. Google got hit with this, or YouTube got hit with this earlier as well in the last couple of years. The FTC said yesterday Disney violated the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. That basically requires kid-oriented apps and websites to get parents' consent before collecting personal information if they're under 13. So according to the complaint, Disney failed to properly label some videos that it uploaded to YouTube as made for kids. That mislabeling allowed Disney, through YouTube, to collect personal data from children under 13, viewing child-directed videos, and use that data for targeted advertising specifically to those children. So since the videos weren't labeled as being for kids, they specifically included that targeting advertising side, right? So they're getting hit on this. Of course, as I just said, YouTube got hit with this as well. YouTube, though, paid a $170 million fine back in 2019 for a similar complaint. I think Disney's a little different because they didn't click the right button, whereas YouTube was just letting it go out there. So I don't know. That's a big price difference out there that we have to, of course, deal with as we go through things. So when we come back here, of course, on McCollum on Business, we keep the show rolling. One more look at the Market Watch stocks. We're going to look at a company called Bruker, Sprinkler, TG Therapeutics as well. We'll see what that market's doing here as the day has gone on. We're just kind of waiting for some more, job reports, unemployment reports for the rest of the weeks and everything. So come on back. It's McCollum on Business. And we're back here, McCollum on Business, and I'm just sitting there during the break, and I loaded up, Fox Business, CNBC, CNN Business, and I was just looking at some headlines that were hitting here. A lot of stuff on the job opening data, what the expectations are, the other job reports coming out, unemployment reports later. CNBC has one. Newsmax sues Fox News for allegedly abusing their monopoly power. And then underneath that one, you got Apple has survived Trump's tariffs so far. And then they're going to raise iPhone prices anyway, is a big story there. Coming up, they're doing their big announcement here, and I think September 18th. Don't quote me on the date, but it's coming up here this month for their new iPhones that they're coming out, their new product that they're coming out with this year. They do it every year in the September timeframe. Well, they're coming out with that, and will we see some price increases specifically for these products as something that obviously we'll have to pay attention to? These articles here that I see on it, every single one has a story about iPhone prices possibly going up, which tells me it's being floated as price increases coming, and they want to see kind of how the public reacts to that news before they announce it coming up on their big meeting time. So just a heads up for everybody on what's coming there. And of course, here we got this show live at 11 o'clock here, Robat TV, to watch us live. We appreciate everybody that watches us live as well. We see you guys out there. We see the numbers. Of course, it goes up on demand on Robat TV right after the show as well. New thing for this show, we do put it up there on my show's YouTube page out there. So share us with your friends. Catch us there if you can't get to Robat TV. We appreciate it very much. Look, this is a show is a passion of mine, more so than anything else. And anybody that catches it, and let me know, right? We're getting into more and more people and spreading this show specifically out there. Trying to make it fun and informative. I get some feedback from people. Don't hesitate to reach out and let me know if you'd like to see something else on the show, something additional, and let us know what you're looking for in your business news here at the news day, or if you're catching us at the end of the day as well. Of course, the main event earlier today, 8 to 10 a.m., live on Robat TV, of course. Now it's on demand at Robat TV. The free podcast is up on any of your favorite podcast systems. You can find it right now as well. And then, of course, that's up on YouTube also. Like and subscribe to the YouTube page if you would. And, of course, like and subscribe to the free podcast system that you're on. It just helps us share out there as people are out there. This YouTube one has been coming for a while. I've had several requests of people that either can't afford to join the Robat TV at certain times of the year. They have to cancel it and things. So on demand is where we're putting it there right now, and help us support that, getting out to the people looking for us here. Of course, the pit stop, it's actually going to be recorded at Thursday here this week. Some news is coming out and some more court stuff happening. I'm waiting for that to come out. So that'll be out on Thursday. Same situation. Free podcast there at the Pit Stop Talk on Podbean. At the Pit Stop Talk is their social media as well. And then, of course, YouTube and Robat TV is where you can find that on demand coming up tomorrow on Thursday. And with all that, let's get back into the Market Watch. Well, earlier today, the S&P 500 was up. It has flipped a little bit here. It's down 14 points right now. But the NASDAQ is up the 121 points right now. So it's led by Alphabet after that antitrust ruling. Some other stocks in that same category going up today as well. S&P going negative on us, down that 14 points. The Dow Jones is down the 174 points right now. As I said, NASDAQ up the 123. The small cap index, the Russell 2K, down the 2 points. Bitcoin, well, coming down here closer to zero than earlier today, but still in that 112,000 range. 112,091 on us as it just switched right now. Stocks we're paying attention to, some companies you probably haven't heard of. So I like to focus on these every once in a while. Bruker is the first one. They're a diagnostic solution stock. Yeah, down 12.58% today. It announced the sale of $600 million in convertible stocks. Anytime you do convertible stocks, your stock generally goes down. So this puts this 12.55% down today, puts Bruker on pace for its biggest one-day drop since July 21st. They slid 12% on that date. So they're still above that percent there. There could be a new number here as we are getting late in the trading day here today. We record this show right now. It's 11:30 here Phoenix time. Sprinkler is the next stock we're going to look at as well. They're a software company. Well, I always wonder what is good when you leave a company and their stock dips. Well, they're down 7.09%. Well, their financial chief, Manish Sarin, is going to be departing from his role in the company effective September 19th. That news overshadowed the fact that they had better than expected second quarter results. Their stock is down 7.03% right now based off of that announcement of their finance chief leaving the company. Then you got TG Therapeutics is the last stock we're going to look at. They're a biotech company. Well, we'll end on a positive note. They're up 4.71% right now. They authorized another $100 million in its share repurchase program. Remember, we had that information, all the big companies doing share buybacks right now, since huge record dollar amounts of buybacks. Well, add TG Therapeutics. This one caught my eye because of that. By the way, TG Therapeutics completed another buyback of the same size that's already done. So they did that $100 million. Now they announced another $100 million in share repurchasing program there for TG Therapeutics. That's just going to keep their stock price at an elevated level as they buy back those stocks here coming up for them. So some interesting things happening around the stock side. And let's get into some local stories here. I got 2 or 3 of them here for you here at the end of the show. Well, this is interesting. The Navajo Nation up there in northern Arizona, well, they might start using an automatic license plate reader. And it's specifically, they already use them, but now they want to switch to a company that has a big reach here in Arizona and a growing reach. A lot of people switching to them. And a lot of criticism this company has across the whole United States in terms of how they operate. So this committee is made up of the tribe's legislative council. They heard from Flock Safety is the company name. They're based out of Atlanta. And that's the company that signed contracts with other cities in Arizona, Sedona, Flagstaff, Scottsdale, a bunch of other cities, and now, of course, Navajo Nation being looked at. A legislature up there leads the council's Law and Order Committee. Her name is Eugenia Charles Newton. She supports the new system and says it's needed on the Navajo reservation. So basically license plate readers. So if a report's in of a kid missing, other items like that, scans license plates to try, of course, try to find them out there in a lot of open land there in the Navajo community, right? Up there in northern Arizona. Well, this company, why is it so, why are people critical of this company? Well, they recently paused the pilot program after the state of Illinois learned that Flock Safety had allowed Customs and Border Protection to access data on the drivers specifically in Illinois. If you know anything about Illinois, blue state, they protect the undocumented and illegal people there, and did not like that too much, so they stopped it. Flock Safety came out and said its systems capture billions of photos of license plates each month. The information collected, though, is owned by the jurisdictions in which the systems are located. They say they do not own it. Law enforcement does receive inquiries from other agencies, according to the Associated Press, reporting on how the Customs and Border Protection kind of got involved in this. The company markets a boutique of security systems, a bunch of them, license plate readers, which is what the Navajo people are looking for, to rapid response drones, gunshot detectors, National License Plate Network is other things that they market as well. They say that they capture 20 billion license plates every month in 5,000 cities across 49 states is how big this company is in terms of their license plate reading. You cannot run anymore, folks. Those days are gone, as they will capture you with your license plate readers out there. And then let's talk a little bit about the Phoenix Job Corps, right? Been a lot of turmoil here. It was shut down earlier this year. A judge kept them open. Well, now we know that their abrupt closing with the Doge stuff happening earlier this year, well, we know it's back in business now. The Job Corps Center, it's located downtown there off of, I believe it's 3rd Street, just south of Jefferson in that area. I used to work with them a lot when I was in the corporate world and construction things. Well, it is open. It's officially open. It's actively enrolling new students currently. And they came out and they did a statement saying that they are doing it as well. Students who were sent home when the pause was announced earlier this year, well, they're returning to campus as well. The reason why? Where'd the funding coming from now? Well, the U.S. Senate Appropriations Committee has voted to continue funding the Job Corps program across the country for fiscal year 2026. After the U.S. Department of Labor did announce it was pausing the Job Corps operations back on May 29th. It's all had to do with that Doge cutting of funds. The restored funding still needs approval by the full Senate and House of Representatives, but the one in Phoenix here at least is reopening, or is open again, I should say. Job Corps, if you don't know, offers free career training and housing for low-income young adults. People aged 16 to 24. Students can enroll in courses to learn skilled trades, including cement and masonry, things like plastering, carpentry, office administration, clinic. I think they do medical assisting now as well for what they do. So the interesting thing is these centers are basically run by contractors, right? So they get real hands-on experience in these trade areas. Earlier this year, 143 employees at the downtown Phoenix Job Corps Center were told they were being laid off. Of course, there was a warn notice, right, that was filed, and that's how we figured out that number. 124 staffers down in Tucson at their Fred G. Acosta Job Corps Center down there in Tucson were also given notice they were being terminated. So not just Phoenix and Tucson that was affected, a bunch of warn notices were issued by Job Corps offices across the country. Up in Oregon, 168 jobs were on the line as well, according to the Portland Business Journal reported then. Multiple lawsuits obviously challenged the Job Corps ruling. The Labor Department cited high operational costs and high rates of incidents involving not just violence, but drug use, other breaches of safety and security in its reasoning to shuttering those programs. Over the summer, several lawsuits battled it out and everything, and they eventually won, right? In June, a U.S. judge issued a temporary restraining order against the Department of Labor to stop the closure of programs before a further ruling on the case could come up. That was a lawsuit brought by Trade Group representing contractors that actually run the Job Corps sites out there. So the injunction was issued. The Phoenix Job Corps Center resumed their normal operations. I was trying to find out the Tucson one resumed, and I was struggling to find that answer for this story. The contractor that runs the program, it's called Adams and Associates, ended up not following through with the previously reported layoffs because of that injunction. They do not run the Tucson Center, so I was trying to find out if the Tucson Center is back open or what the situation is. But Phoenix Job Corps, troubled youth, looking for trade stuff there. It's actually a really good program. I worked closely with it for a bunch of years, helping painting, etc., drywall repairs, drywall, etc., up there when I was in the corporate world. It's a fantastic thing. And the kids that go through it and get out of it do find jobs, and well-paying jobs, I might add, in those industries, and they come out with a trade, right? Instead of coming out and not knowing what they want to do with their lives out there, and so good news from that front that is back up in my humble opinion. And now, how much does Sun Devil Athletics affect the whole area of Arizona? Not just from rooting interest, not just from excitement. What about money wise? Well, we got some numbers here for you. And a new report has come out that the Sun Devil Athletics has a $99.5 million total economic impact on the state's gross domestic product. Obviously, the football program is a lot of it. As a matter of fact, it's about half of that $99.5 million. So the football team, well, they just obviously contribute a huge, injunction into the state's coffers. Well, because they sold out that first game there, right? I think it was 56,000 something, close to 57,000 fans there at Mountain American Stadium when they played NAU last Saturday weekend. Of course, so that's a big number there with those taxes and everything. The team has signed with a new food and beverage partner there at the stadium, and they did increase premium seating options for fans willing to pay that extra amount. Obviously, more taxes are paid off of that as well. But it's not just football, right? Basketball, baseball, gymnastics, hockey, softball. Those programs contribute to the valley's economy through ticket sales, tourism, and local spending as well. So it does extend past campus, dollars, right? Not only that, we haven't even got into restaurants, hotels, retails, jobs in that area, not just in Tempe, but Maricopa County, based around these athletics, and the payroll taxes, obviously, et cetera. So this whole study represents an analysis of total economic impacts of the infusion of new dollars associated with all Sun Devil athletic ticketed games. And not only that, but the events around them as well, Tempe and Maricopa County entities. So up to 600 ASU athletes are out there. Well, they're supported by more than 750,000 fans each year, according to this report. In just the 24-25 season, Sun Devil Athletics hosted 162 ticketed home events. The total attendance of those was 635,510 people. People at those events, obviously, includes media traveling in for those games, visiting teams, obviously, and their fans coming in, which would include tourists and, also fans coming up from outside of Maricopa County, right? You come down from Flagstaff, come up from Tucson as well, just adding to that number. So here's the interesting thing. Here are the numbers that we got for each one. Sun Devil football, well, their state GDP. And by the way, the Business Journal gives us this information. We got to give them, matter of fact, a plug here for their coverage of this. But Arizona State football, their state GDP for Maricopa County, $54.8 million. As we told you, about just under half, or about half of that $99 million total there, right? The labor income in Maricopa County is $34.7 million. Direct taxes to the city of Tempe, $1.1 million. And they only have, depending on the year, they only have 6, 7, 8 home games as well going into the season, right? But men's and women's basketball, they don't break this up as both of them together. State GDP for Maricopa County is $15.8 million. Their labor income in Maricopa County is $9.9 million. Direct taxes for city of Tempe, $287,000. Obviously seats a lot less people inside of the bank there, Desert Financial Arena. Well, Sun Devil baseball, they do sell tickets. It's a fun thing to go see, folks, and they're on the uptick right now. State GDP for Maricopa County is $10.9 million. Labor income in Maricopa County, $6.4 million. Direct taxes to Tempe, $140,000. And this one's interesting to me. Sun Devil men's hockey, of course, they built Mullet Arena there and everything. Their state GDP for Maricopa County was $8.5 million. Labor income for Maricopa County, $5.3 million. Direct taxes for the city of Tempe, $264,000. Right behind men's and women's basketball is the hockey program. That only seats 5,000 people in that arena. Then softball, just to give you these numbers, their state GDP, $4.5 million. Labor income there for Maricopa County, $2.6 million. Direct taxes for City of Tempe, $118,000 there. So football, sports around Arizona State is not just about rooting and cheering for your team. There's actually an economic impact around not just Tempe, but the state, Maricopa County as a whole, when these events do go on there. And you can see that directly here with these numbers around ASU and their athletics out there. So good for them. And as you have more success, more people want to be, as evidence to the NAU game. Normally that game is not going to be sold out. It's going to be a fraction of the crowd that was there. Saturday night, NAU's the opponent. Not a knock on NAU. It's just not at a talent level that ASU's at. And there'll be another huge crowd coming up in 2 weeks when they play Texas State here as well. So economic impact's huge here for these athletic programs here at Arizona State University. And folks, when we come on back tomorrow, of course, Thursday's edition, live at 11 o'clock, come and join us, would you? We'll see you then. Don't forget, like, subscribe to the YouTube page. Hit up this show as well on demand on Robat TV if you'd like. We'll see you tomorrow, folks, live at 11 o'clock. Have a great afternoon.